Saturday, October 19, 2024, 9:30 p.m., Northern Michigan. Four friends drove to a secluded lake deep in the forest, but what truly awaited them that night? Written by Fari0825. Fog wrapped the lake like a living thing, curling around the trees, hiding the water's edge, and swallowing the faint glow of the moon. John, Mike, Emily, and Sarah laughed nervously as they unloaded their car, setting up blankets and snacks for what was supposed to be their last picnic before winter. The air was chilly, damp, and smelled faintly of earth and pine. Mike ran ahead, tossing a stick into the water. "Come on. The water's perfect tonight," he shouted, splashing into the shallow edge. Emily hugged herself, uneasy. "I don't know, it feels wrong. Maybe we shouldn't stay too long." Sarah waved her off. "It's just fog, Em. Don't be so scared." John glanced at the lake. Its surface shimmered oddly, reflecting the moonlight in strange angles, almost like it was moving on its own. Shadows from the forest seemed to lean closer, stretching unnaturally toward the water. A low, almost imperceptible whisper floated through the air. John's stomach tightened. "Did you hear that?" he asked. Emily's eyes widened. I thought I heard something too." Mike, unaware of the tension, dove into the water with a loud splash, sending mist swirling around the friends. The fog thickened instantly, curling like icy fingers around their legs. The trees behind them seemed to shift subtly, shadows moving without wind. Emily grabbed Mike's arm. "Stop. Don't go too far." He laughed, shaking off her hand. "Relax, it's just water." A sudden ripple passed across the lake. It wasn't caused by him. Something beneath the surface stirred, dark and silent. Sarah stepped back, staring at the water's reflection. For a brief moment, she swore she saw a pale face staring up at Mike from beneath the surface. Her breath caught in her throat. John's mind raced. He remembered the story he had heard as a child. 100 years ago, a pregnant woman had been brutally murdered and her body thrown into this very lake. The locals said her spirit had never left, that anyone who dared swim after her was never truly safe. Emily's voice trembled. "John, something's wrong. I can feel it." Mike laughed again, splashing toward the center. "Come on. Don't be scared. It's just fog and water." But the lake seemed to shiver under him, the mist swirling violently. A faint scream echoed across the trees, high-pitched and haunting, carried by the wind or perhaps by something else entirely. The friends froze. Shadows twisted at the edge of their vision, forming shapes too quick to recognize. The fog thickened, hiding the forest behind them, isolating them in an eerie, silent world. John yelled, panic rising in his chest. "Mike! Get out! Now!" The fog swallowed his voice. The water remained unnervingly still, yet beneath the surface, something moved, dark and restless. Mike's laughter faltered, replaced by a gasp, then a shout, "What the?" Emily screamed, pulling Sarah back. The forest seemed alive, shadows leaning closer, and whispers swirled around them like icy wind, repeating words they couldn't understand. The friends huddled together, realizing that the night had changed. The lake was no longer just water. It was watching. Waiting. Hungry. The fog thickened, swirling like restless spirits around the friends. Mike was still in the water, his laughter now uneven, interrupted by small splashes that didn't sound like him. Shadows under the surface shifted unnaturally. Something dark moved beneath, circling him, almost waiting. "Mike, come back," John called, his voice trembling. The mist swallowed his words before they reached him. Emily grabbed his arm, shaking. "John, it's not normal. I feel it." Mike surfaced, gasping, water dripping from his hair. His eyes widened in fear. Did you see that? He stammered, pointing to the center of the lake where the water shimmered unnaturally. Shadows twisted there, darker than the night itself. Sarah shivered, hugging herself. We should leave, now. Please. John tried to stay calm, but the hairs on his neck stood up. He remembered the story his grandfather had told him. 100 years ago, a man had killed a pregnant woman nearby and dumped her body into this lake. Since then, the locals whispered, no one who swam here at night ever lived to tell the tale. The whispers weren't just stories, they were warnings. Suddenly, Mike screamed. The sound was sharp, cutting through the silence of the fog. The water around him churned violently, as if something massive had moved beneath him. Emily gasped and ran to the edge of the lake. Mike. Hold on. I'm coming. But when she reached him, he was gone. The ripples faded. The water lay still, eerily calm. Not a trace of Mike remained. The friends stared, frozen in shock. The fog swirled closer, thickening into shapes that seemed almost human, almost alive. Mike, no! John shouted, his voice raw. He dropped to his knees, peering into the water. His reflection was distorted, twisted by the fog, his face pale and terrified. Then the whispers began. Faint at first, almost playful, then louder. Join us, forever, stay. They came from all directions. Sarah clutched Emily's arm. Do you hear that? It's coming from the water. Emily's eyes widened. This is real. The stories, they weren't lying. John tried to think. He remembered the newspaper clippings his grandfather had shown him, the young pregnant woman, the brutal murder, the body never recovered. Over the decades, countless warnings were buried in local archives. Never swim in the lake at night, they said. The water remembers, it takes what is owed. A sudden cold wind rushed across the lake, carrying faint cries. The friends stumbled back, huddling together. Shadows flickered in the fog. Shapes rose from the water, pale and twisted, their faces hollow. The pregnant woman from the old story seemed to materialize, her eyes black voids, reaching out with long, ethereal arms. Sarah screamed and ran, tripping on the wet ground. Emily tried to grab her, but the fog moved between them like liquid, separating the friends. John felt a cold hand brush against his shoulder. He spun around. No one was there. Only the fog, moving with intention, whispering, watching. Mike's scream echoed again, faint, distant, as if carried through time. The friends realized with horror, the lake didn't just take him, it trapped him, folding reality, dragging him into its curse. Emily sobbed, tears freezing on her cheeks. We have to get out. We have to leave before it takes us too. The fog shifted, forming the outline of the woman in the water again. Her lips moved, silent words, but the meaning was clear, stay, forever. John grabbed Emily's hand. Run. Follow me. They stumbled through the mist, trying to find the car, but the path twisted unnaturally. Every tree, every shadow seemed alive, leaning toward them, whispering. And then John caught a glimpse of movement, Mike's arm breaking the water's surface for a brief second, pale, lifeless, reaching, pleading. But before he could react, the fog swallowed it again. The friends ran blindly, panic rising with every step. The whispers, the shadows, the shapes in the fog, they were all around, pressing in, relentless. And deep in the water, the dark presence waited, patient, hungry, eternal. Emily and John stumbled through the thick fog, each step heavier than the last. Every sound seemed amplified, the snapping of twigs, the whisper of leaves, the distant splash of water. Shapes moved at the edge of their vision, shadows stretching and bending in impossible ways. John, do you see that? Emily's voice trembled. A faint figure stood in the fog ahead, pale, floating just above the ground, eyes hollow, staring. John froze. stay close, don't look away." But even as he said it, the figure vanished, replaced by another, closer this time, mirroring the first. Whispers grew louder, layering over themselves, echoing in the fog, "Join us, stay, forever." A sudden movement behind them made Emily scream. Turning, she saw a pale hand break the surface of the lake. Mike's arm, or something that looked like him, reached outward, lifeless, beckoning. But the moment she tried to run toward him, the fog shifted, and he was gone. The friends ran blindly, branches slapping their faces, roots tripping them. The fog seemed to stretch the forest, twisting paths back on themselves. Every familiar landmark vanished. Every sound, splashing water, whispers, distorted laughter, haunted them from all directions. John remembered another part of the story. Decades ago, locals who ignored warnings vanished too. Boats found empty, tents abandoned, belongings scattered near the water's edge. No bodies. Just echoes of screams carried by the fog. Emily tripped and fell, hitting the muddy ground hard. When John reached her, he saw her eyes wide in terror. From the lake, shapes rose, ghostly figures of the pregnant woman and others who had drowned or been taken over the decades. Their mouths opened in silent screams, arms outstretched, their faces twisted in anguish and rage. John grabbed Emily's hand. "We have to move. Now." The fog thickened further, almost solid, pressing against their skin. Shadows pressed closer, whispering, circling. Emily heard the cries of Mike, distorted and far away, calling her name. "Help me," his voice mixed with the whispering of hundreds of others. Suddenly, a pale figure emerged from the water, the pregnant woman herself, floating above the lake. Her hair clung wet and dark, eyes black as voids. She reached for John and Emily with ghostly hands. A cold wind pushed them back, but they stumbled forward anyway, hearts hammering, adrenaline fueling their desperate escape. They burst through the forest, finally seeing the faint lights of their car. But the moment they reached it, they realized something was wrong. The car doors wouldn't open, the engine wouldn't start. The fog swirled around them, dense and suffocating. Emily screamed as a shadow passed over her, cold fingers brushing her shoulder. She turned to see Mike, or what remained of him, dragged slowly across the water toward the center of the lake, eyes hollow, mouth open in a silent scream. John grabbed her hand and pulled her away, running blindly into the trees, never looking back. By morning, local authorities found the lake calm, still, almost serene. The car sat abandoned on the muddy bank, blankets and snacks scattered as if nothing had happened. No bodies. No sign of Mike, Emily, or John. Only faint footprints disappearing into the fog. A news report aired later that day. Authorities are investigating a disappearance at Miller's Lake in northern Michigan. 4 friends went missing last night during a late picnic near the lake. Their belongings were found at the edge, but no one has been recovered. Locals warn that the lake has a dark history dating back over a century, with several unsolved disappearances. Even now, locals say that if you drive near Miller's Lake at night, you can hear faint whispers carried by the fog, the laughter of children and men who never left, and the shadowy figure of a pregnant woman appearing on the water. The lake waits. Patient. Hungry. Eternal. And for those who dare get too close, it never forgets, it never lets go.